Hi, today I want to talk about sexual harassment and unpack this concept for you so that hopefully you won't get into hot water in the future. The first thing is to discuss what sexual harassment is and what it isn't. And my advice to you is to go look at your organizational policy and how it is defined in the policy, and even look at your national legislation around this to make sure that you're very clear about what it is and how it is defined. But the bottom line is sexual harassment at work is any interaction, verbal or physical cues or anything else that is sexual in nature and that impacts a person's ability to feel safe and to feel that they can be productive at work. So it has to be sexual in nature and it impacts their ability to feel safe and to be productive at work. As I said, look up your own local definition to be clear. Now, a couple of distinctions that really help and that I teach in the training that I do for workplaces. The first one is intention versus impact. So I work with a lot of perpetrators who will say to me, I didn't intend to have that impact on another person. I wasn't intending when I shared that joke for my coworker to feel harassed or to feel offended. And what's really important to know is that it's not your intention that matters, it's the impact you have on that individual that matters. And of course, we have an objective rule, which means that when we're looking and investigating a situation, we always ask the question, would a third party who was in the same situation also feel offended by what you did? And if the answer is yes, then it protects you and the other individual from what we call, people who are bitter and who are looking for ways to set somebody up. And it really makes sure that we're being objective about the complaint. The second distinction that's very important for you to understand is direct versus indirect. And what I mean by that is that a lot of people think that sexual harassment is if I touch another individual, if I have physical contact with somebody else. And so it's directed at a specific person. That is sexual harassment. We need to understand that you can also file a sexual harassment complaint and experience sexual harassment when it is not directed at a specific individual. So people who are around you are witnessing something and feeling impacted by it. So maybe I'm in a consensual relationship with somebody at work and we're a bit too romantic and have shows of affection publicly, and we're creating a space and a work environment that is not helping other people feel like they are safe at work or that they can be productive because of what you're doing. That also counts as sexual harassment. So it's both direct and indirect, and those distinctions are super important. Also, when we talk about sexual harassment, a lot of people think that sexual harassment is about being in person, which means that, you and I are in the same space and I'm interacting with you in a physical in nature in particular. But we know that sexual harassment is also possible online, and especially now with COVID happening, most people are working in virtual environments, and I'm hearing more and more about complaints of how sexual harassment is transferring from in-person situations to online situations as well, and I will be talking about that in a different video later. The other distinction that's really important over and above in being in the same physical space and having harassment happen online is the distinction between quid pro quo and toxic workplace. So a lot of people think that sexual harassment is often a quid pro quo situation, which is perhaps somebody who's in a position of power who's saying, if you do this for me, which is sexual in nature, then I will reward you by giving you a promotion, or I will reward you by taking you somewhere, something like that. That's called quid pro quo, which is an exchange of rewards or even being punished if you don't follow through on something that's being asked of you that is of sexual nature. Now, that is sexual harassment, but it is also sexual harassment when you create a toxic work environment that has nothing to do with quid pro quo. So there is no promise of exchanging anything. There is no, penalty if a certain person doesn't act in a certain way, but it is still impacting people's ability to feel safe and their ability to be productive when you're creating a toxic work environment. And so the majority of cases that come across my desk often have a toxic work environment element to it, which is super important. Now, the other thing that I want to talk about, which is also important, is the idea that sexual harassment happens at work. So, I work 9 to 5, I'm in a workplace, whether it's virtually or in person. And if I do anything that is sexual in nature that offends anybody, that is sexual harassment. We need to understand that sexual harassment also happens when you're away from your physical workplace. So maybe you're at a conference where you're representing your employer and you're there with colleagues, or you're even interacting with other people at the conference, but you're representing your company. Or you are at home and it's a Saturday and you put a post up about a picture you took of someone at work, and it's on your private profile, it's on your Facebook account, or you've sent a joke on WhatsApp that has something to do with an individual at work. Maybe you're telling a joke about them, maybe you're discussing them in a way that's not appropriate. Even if it's on your personal channel, and even if it's after hours, even if it's in a workplace setting that is at a conference or away from your office, all of these scenarios also count as sexual harassment and are very important for us to understand. So, these are just some of the things that I cover when I'm doing training on sexual harassment. And I think now that we are in a COVID world where a lot of this is playing out in new and nuanced ways in the online setting, it's even more important than ever that we have this conversation to not only get clear on what it is and what it can look like, and talk about scenarios, real scenarios of where this has happened and how organizations have had to deal with it, but also that we put into place all the right policies and procedures, and create settings that allow everybody to feel safe and allow us to avoid or address these issues as they come up very effectively. So I hope this short video was really helpful for you. If you want more support around sexual harassment in your workplace, please reach out to me. I would love to support you on this very important topic.